Hello and welcome to another Games Perspective video. I'm 3D Spider, and we are back inside of EVE Online to have a quick discussion, actually a continuation of the discussion of the previous video, which was standings. Um, that particular video didn't quite cover every single topic, including the overview, so I'm going to do that now. Actually, to start, I'm going to quickly show you this. Under the standings tab on your character sheet, I mentioned before the fact that I did a lot of missions for the Caldari State, and as a result, had really bad standings with the Gallente Federation. I just wanted to quickly show you exactly how that actually worked. If you bring up the actual information for that particular faction, they have a standings tab as well, but it's a little bit different from the other ones that you've seen. It has the usual information that you'd expect, which is the Empire standings versus the individual 3D Spider, which is my character, is actually relatively good as a result of me doing a lot of missions for them. But the state's standings against my corporation, the Van Diemen's Demise Corporation, is actually negative 1.06. And that's the result of a lot of members of my corporation going around and running missions for opposing factions. The reason why that actually happened is because this next tab, Standings with Other Empires, you can actually see that the Caldari State has poor standings with the Gallente Federation. This is actually a result of the fact that these two entities are at war, technically, with each other. The other two major factions, Minmatar Republic and Amarr, the Amarr Empire and the Caldari State actually have very similar mindsets. They're both very authoritarian, dictatorship and monarchy type situation. And because they have really good, I suppose, standings between each other, that's reflected inside of this actual standings tab. The Caldari State and the Amarr Empire have excellent standings, and the Amarr Empire has slightly lower standings than the Caldari State, but not by a huge amount. Whereas the Minmatar Republic actually sided with the Gallente Federation when it comes to a lot of their wars and stuff like that. These two help each other out, so as a result, the Caldari State does not like the Minmatar Republic. A lot of these reasons are kind of lore-based, but they have actual, gameplay implications as a result. So if you do a lot of missions for the Caldari, you will lose some standings with the Gallente Federation. At the same time, you're going to gain some extra standings with the Amarr Empire and lose a small amount of standings with the Minmatar Republic. There are a lot of other entities as well. Not many of them are really worth mentioning. A couple of things that are kind of interesting. Caldari State versus the Grista Pirates. The Grista Pirates are actually a breakaway faction of the Caldari State. The Caldari State absolutely hates them for that particular reason, the fact that they've broken away from each other, but the Grista Pirates actually have neutral standings with Caldari State. It's because they kind of see themselves as, compatriots, and I don't know, they kind of view the Caldari State as kind of lost souls. But they don't hold any sort of animosity for them, so they've actually got neutral standings. But that's a one-sided standings view. The Caldari State actually completely hates the Grista Pirates. And stuff like Caldari State versus Serpentis. Serpentis Corporation is actually a pirate organization. They're kind of I'm not sure if they were a breakaway of the Gallente Federation or if they were associated in some way, but for whatever reason, the Serpentis Corporation and the Gallente Federation are kind of, I wouldn't say at war, but they absolutely hate each other. But as a result of that, the Caldari State actually doesn't really have any sort of, positive or negative thing to say about the Serpentis Corporation. Even though they're pirates and all that, they kind of see it as, enemy of my enemy is my friend. Well, in this case, not really a friend, but certainly not an enemy. Anyway, that's kind of an overview of how that works. Basically, you gain faction standings if you do story missions for a particular faction, but you have to keep in mind the fact that if you do too many of those missions, you are going to have other effects on your standings with other entities inside of the game, because it's not really black and white in this particular, universe. Anyway, that's a quick overview of faction standings. I don't think there was anything else I wanted to talk about here. Oh, you can right-click and show transactions. It'll give you ID number, a date, and the actual value as well as a reason for the decrease or increase in standings. You've got all these ones here. Details was incurred for destroying Caldari State's construction freight in CSOA. This means I did a mission for the Guristas. It was against the Caldari State, and as a result, they deducted some standings. And then you've got other stuff like this, which is, where I've done something for the Caldari State. They reward me with a derived modifier. That's just a brief overview of how that works. Alright, I'll leave that alone for now. I'll go straight into overview. Basically, because I'm out in space at the moment, I can bring up this particular menu. Under overview settings, you can right click, go over to this particular option. Once you're in overview settings, there are a bunch of different tabs up here that dictate what's actually shown in the overview. Just a quick idea of what's actually going on here. You've got 5 different tabs. Normal, well, these are names that I've come up for these ones. They don't have any sort of meaning outside of the meaning that I give it. You've got the overview profile and the bracket profile. What this means is you can see I'm currently in a player-owned structure, a control tower, which is actually owned by my alliance. But you don't really actually see the bracket for it. If I was to show all brackets, you'd suddenly be able to see all of the different icons associated with it. The reason why you might want to turn this off is because there are some situations where you've got 500 to 1,000 ships on the grid at one time, and trying to load all of those different brackets at the same time can overload your system, and it really detracts from your ability to actually interact with the game. So for the most part, you want to at the very least have a profile set. In this particular situation, the profiles match the overview profile. So if I've got any friendly units in Combat B, they'll actually show up here as well as show up with a bracket. But if I go back to Combat A, that disappears as well as from my overview. In terms of standings, you'll notice that I've got Faction Warfare and Neutral, as well as Combat B, which is for friendly units. The way I've actually determined this is because under filters for all of my enemy states, basically, if you go under states, you can choose to deselect all pilots that have excellent and good standings, and keep all the ones with neutral standings, no standings, terrible standings. The rest of these are kind of related to other things like security status, but they don't really directly relate to standings. So I'll probably leave that for another video. But that's FW and Newt. For friendly, you've got the exact opposite. You've got good standings and excellent standings. Remember, this relates to, if I'll just bring this up quickly. This relates to these 5 here. So you've got terrible standings, bad standings, neutral standings, good standings, and excellent standings. Those 5 there determine whether or not they're actually shown up on the overview. This is really important in combat situations because if you have a very large number of enemy ships, you don't want to have to scroll through all of the different ships to try and find one that actually shows as an enemy. You only really want to show enemy ships, or if you're in a logistics ship, i.e. a remote repairing ship, you'll want to only show friendly ships. There are other situations like showing celestial objects in the game for the purpose of travel. Ooh, good timing. You get to see a Titan warp in. These are pretty amazing ships, actually. Crazy big ships. There's also a good idea to show you exactly how this works in terms of, you see how they have a dark blue for the actual icon. If you go under here, you see the dark blue being shown there. That directly correlates to the fact that they have excellent standings with us. The 10 standings means dark blue. And if there were any enemies on the grid, you'd see them as red. That can actually be changed as well. If you want to change the appearance of things, you can change the appearance of excellent standings, good standings, terrible standings, bad standings, as well as people that are in your fleet, people that are outlaw. This is actually a very interesting thing as well, the color tag. you'll notice that you've got a couple of different variants of red. The little negative sign shows that a person has a terrible standing with you, but a red skull means that the person is an outlaw. This is important when determining whether or not you can engage that person in high security space. If that person is an outlaw, he's basically free for all. Anybody can shoot him regardless of what kind of space they're in. And if the person is at war with your corporation, they get a star next to it, which is also important in situations where you're in high security space, because even in high security space, if you're at war with a different corporation, they can still attack you, and the Concord, i.e. the police, won't be able to help you in any way, shape, or form. That's pretty much it. I do want to quickly mention the fact that I'm actually allowed inside of this bubble. See this bubble here? It's designed to prevent combat inside of this area. It means that I'm allowed to basically stay here, and I'm completely safe, essentially. The very worst that an enemy could do is gain access to the password for this particular player in station, by having a spy in our corporation or whatever, and then actually manually piloting in and bumping my ship outside of the bubble so that it can be engaged. But it's very, very highly unlikely that it's going to happen in this particular situation. One thing to mention though is, because it's owned by a member of my alliance, it immediately gets positive standing with me, with the individual, this particular character, which means that I can gain access to it. These can be set so that they actually have passwords instead, or they can be set to alliance use, which basically means that they're free for all so long as you have positive standing. It's kind of a situation whereby positive standing, means that you actually gain access to a particular thing. And the same with stations as well, actually. I might just quickly show you. I'll just bring up the map quickly. This is where we are at the moment, T-G. We're down in the south at the moment, taking on a couple of southern entities like AAA and Stain. But that campaign's wrapping up pretty soon. I'll just quickly bring up the station here. This particular station is actually owned by Best Friends Forever, which is a member of the Alliance. It's a corporation inside of the Alliance, so I immediately gain access to it. However, if you have, say, an alliance that your alliance is friendly to, this particular solar system over here has a station which is owned by Red Alliance. Red Alliance actually has positive 5 standing with us. This is a result of a temporary kind of situation whereby we're working with them to a particular goal. What this means is that all of the Red Alliance pilots will actually show as +5, which means that whenever I'm trying to engage enemies, they will not show up in my overview. It's very important to set standings for this particular situation, because the vast majority of pilots don't have the time to, see somebody on the overview, right-click, go pilot, where is it, show information, go to the pilot. By this time you've probably been blown up, and then and then go in here and actually figure out whether or not they've actually got friendly standings with you. It's much easier to set up your overview so that it immediately filters all the people who are supposed to be there or who are not supposed to be there. But like I said, this particular system in here has a station, and the station, as a result of our alliance being friendly with their alliance, we're actually allowed access to this particular station for now. One tactic that has been used in the past is kind of allowing a corporation to believe that it actually has been invited to a particular place, allowing them temporary standings with the station, and then resetting their standings and screwing them over in that way. This happens in other situations whereby you are allied with a particular entity, and that entity is paid off or has some other ulterior motive to screw you over. They can do that by changing their standings and refusing you entry to your own station. So if you've moved a lot of assets to one of these stations, you've got to be very, very careful, especially if you don't actually directly own the station, because that standing reset could deny you access to your own assets. It's happened a lot in the past. It's actually the reason why certain tactics, such as when Band of Brothers used to own this particular area, the Delvin Querus area, they actually had to leave a lot of their capital assets inside of an NPC station. An NPC station can always be accessed by anybody in the game, because even if a faction hates you to death and they have negative 9.99 standings with you and they want to kill you so bad, they're never going to deny you access to their station. It's just the way that the game's been made. This provides a certain level of security, so you'll never find yourself in the situation where you're getting locked out from your own assets, basically. I think that's pretty much it. Anything further would probably be a discussion of sovereignty, and I kind of don't want to do that in this particular video. Anyway, it kind of looks like these guys are getting ready for a roam, so I might finish this video here. Thank you for watching. Games Perspective video, Standings Part 2, and I don't know if there'll be a Part 3, there might be, if I remember something that I've forgotten. If not, then I'll see you in the next video.